Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really cool chopping board from a piece of American walnut. It's a really nice bit of wood. It's got this lovely bit of figure here and it's got this amazing almost circular hole to it. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's pretty much circular. It's pretty much as good as you'll get from a natural piece of wood. So if you wanted a hole in your wood, all you need to do is just drill it out. Although I decided I'm just going to keep this. I'll sand it down a bit to make it smooth, but I'm going to keep it very natural, so I'm actually going to include that as a feature in this chopping board. So if we have a look at the measurements, this is 310mm by about 435mm, so it's a fairly good sized bit of wood. 25mm, so 2.5cm or an inch, depending on what measurement you use. I started by marking a line onto the piece of wood using chalk. Okay, so I've sketched out the shape and I'm fairly happy with this. It's quite a strange shape for a chopping board, but I think this would be quite cool and something different. I really like this natural look of this hole, so I'm going to make sure I incorporate that. This was my first ever project using my new jigsaw, and this was also the first ever time I had tried this jigsaw. So I started by using some scrap plywood, just so I could get comfortable using the jigsaw. As you can see, I think it turned out fairly successful with the cutting. I did use my handsaw at one stage just because I was a little bit nervous about how well it goes around the corners, but actually it's a really great tool and I will be doing a review on it. I'm really happy with this. I did have to use my handsaw because I was going to just chop it to make it easier, but I realised you just have to be confident using the jigsaw and don't be scared of it, so I just did the best I could. As you can see, this bit's got a square bit, so that'll be done on the belt sander even. And there's a bit here, but I won't be able to get in with the sander there, so that's going to have to be done by hand with either like a pencil. You can use a wooden dowel with some sandpaper or a file, something like that. This end's very rough, this side's great, but it carries really nicely. I don't know whether you can see that, but it holds on a finger really nicely. So we're going to sand this. There are a couple of little imperfections in the wood, but it'll be fine. We'll sand this all the way up from 120 through to 400, I think. I then used my sander to get the right contours to this chopping board. I wanted it to be really smooth on the outside, so I used a 150 grit belt just to get the right profile on the outside. I then moved on to using my Bosch hand sander to give this a really good sanding, as there were a couple of rough spots, presumably from the planer or thicknesser or whatever tool they used to machine this wood up. As you can see, I had a timer in the background, and that was more just for a bit of fun, just so I could see how long it was taking to sand. I then moved on to using a file to get right into these side bits where I couldn't quite fit my hand sander, so I used a file and wrapped some sandpaper around it at times as well, because this made it much easier to get into the contours. This did take a long time, but in my opinion, if you really want your chopping board to be really good, I would recommend you do this, because this makes for a much nicer fit to the actual handle, because otherwise you can feel the bumps where you haven't sanded it nicely. So I was using a combination of 80 grit, 120 grit and 180 grit on this board just to get it really smooth, and then I hand sanded with 240 grit and 400 grit, as you'll see later on. We started off with 180 grit but realised that was far too fine, so I started with 80 grit really and then moved up to 120 grit. I spent about 15 minutes on each grit. I had a feel of it after I'd sanded it once and decided it needed another sand, as I really wanted a smooth finish, especially given this was a present. So I used another sanding pad and just sanded it really smooth. So you need to raise the grain, so a light coating of water, let that soak for about 20 seconds, didn't press the timer, there we go. Right, let it soak in for about 15 more. The colour of this is beautiful. Make sure you get the edges as well. We're going to leave this to dry now for another like 10 minutes or so, and then we'll flip it, sand, let it dry, wait like another 10 minutes, another layer of water, sand 180 grit, 240, 400, and then we're done. Oh, apart from the oil. Then we'll leave it overnight to dry, and then we'll give it away as my gift. So yeah. I then sanded by hand, as this removes the rough spots left by the water and ensures it's better when you clean it. I don't know whether I've spoken about this before, but I accidentally purchased the wrong belt size for my sander, so I ended up with all the way from 40 grit to 180 grit belts, and they were just double the thickness. So I ended up using them on this chopping board project. I left the timer on so you could see how long it was taking to dry. Alright, so we're sanding from all the way from 180, 240. We're now on 400. I'm wearing a dust mask, so sorry for me sounding like a robot. Then we're going to apply a layer of this, another layer, another layer, another layer. We're going to do 4 or 5 layers, haven't decided yet. We'll do one in about 10 minutes, then we'll do one in about an hour, then we'll do one in the morning. No, and then we'll do one at like 10 o'clock tonight, and then one in the morning. Right, come to everyone's favourite part, oiling. So, slap on some gloves. Right. You can either do this the satisfying way where you dribble a bit on, which we're going to try. Not bad, not bad. Not for a first try. Right. Okay, we're going to need way more oil than that. There we go. That's better. Right. So we're rubbing the first layer in. Be liberal with it. You don't need to... Just make sure you apply enough. Right. As you can see, the grain is really popping. I'll give you an overhead shot in a minute once I've applied the oil, because it's actually quite hard to see. Make sure you don't forget about these holes. If you are doing this without a piece that has a natural hole in it, as I suggested earlier, just got so much oil on it now. Make sure you drill it out and sand it really well. And because this is a natural hole, I've sanded it so it's slightly smooth, but I've left some roughness inside it because I think otherwise you detract from the naturalness of it. So yeah, we're just applying oil all over the edges now. I'm only going to do one side for now, so this is the advantage of wearing gloves though, because your gloves are now coated in oil as well, so your gloves are essentially applying oil at the same time. So let that soak in, buff it in a bit. We'll leave that there, take the gloves off. As you can see, the grain has really popped. You can see where it's starting to dry like that. That just looks awesome, the grain. It looks so cool. I've got the light up there, my new light, which I bought to help make filming better. If I change the brightness slightly. Actually, see, I can change the colour, so that's cool white. That's like warm white, and that's half and half. I use half and half most of the time. Well, it's more like 75% white, 25% warm. Okay, let's put a second layer of oil. Not a second layer, sorry. Let's put another layer on the other side. Satisfying watching the oil just all come over it. Right. Let's rub this in. This uses a lot of oil. I would recommend this Chestnut Products Food Safe finish. It's very, very good. And it's not too expensive as oils go. I mean, oil in its very nature is expensive. Not much you can do about that. Right. Okay. Well, this is rather exciting. I'm on to the second layer of oil now. I'm also making an elm bowl. What else am I doing? And I'll make probably another bowl as well. Maybe using some of this walnut that was left over from this. So it's just gone 9:20 in the evening, and I'm going to apply the final coat of oil for this evening, and then, well, yeah, it will be a final coat of oil this evening. I haven't got time to apply another one. And then whilst I was waiting for this to dry, I was sorting out Woodturner's blend, and I have got the packaging all ready, which is mega exciting. So we're going to apply some oil onto this now, and then we'll apply some more in the morning, and then that will be done. So I'm still applying the same amount of oil as last time, a nice heavy dollop, because then it will keep this nicely lubricated, so I can just use it the whole way around the chopping board. Don't worry about splashing the oil, it's not flammable. This food safe oil isn't flammable. I can't guarantee that for all food safe oils, although it shouldn't be. So don't trust me that yours is necessarily going to be fine, but this one happens to say that it is non-flammable. There you go. As in a hill because I'm holding it like this. So yeah, this is far too much oil on here, so that's fine. We'll just let it soak in as much as it can, and then we'll wipe off the extra. Although, it's important you do make sure you apply enough oil, because applying too little oil won't help your your woodworking items. Sorry, didn't mean to say wood turned. It's just I've been working on wood turners blend for the past hour and a bit. Kind of stuck in my head now. So yeah, that is beautiful. The grain on that, the shine. Hopefully you can see. It's very dark. I know. I have got one light up and running at least. So yeah, that will get left overnight. Okay, so we're going to apply the final layer of oil to this. I've done 3 coats now, so this will be the 4th one. I was going to do 5, but 4's plenty. I mean, they recommend 3 anyway, so I'm already doing more than they say you need to do, basically. We're doing a really nice big coat of oil this time. Make sure it soaks into the rag. Every time you apply the oil, it still makes the grain pop. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment, and if you have any project suggestions, please put them in the comment section, because I do reply to every single comment that I receive. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. The person who I gave this to really enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed this video too. Thanks for watching.